Let's get into it. This is a good clip. All right, here we go.
We homeschooled our kids. Now, we put them in public school for a year and took them back out. But it is fascinating to me to watch the differences in the way that my daughters learned and my son learned. And there is something about boys being able to have that experience of going out and discovering and challenging themselves and trying things and taking age-appropriate risks and letting them fail and telling them to get back up and do all of that. And then all of a sudden what we do with that 5-year-old boy is we put him in a classroom, we put him at a desk, and we have him engage in rote memorization. And it's driving him nuts. But he's a problem now. He's a problem, right? He's disruptive to the classroom. And what's fascinating is the school system developed for the child or the child for the school system?
Whoa.
What a question. But boy, I've got an illustration from my own life that just highlights what he's talking about. The way we got into homeschooling is that our oldest son, Ty, was in 5-year kindergarten and wasn't reading, and which I know now is perfectly normal. It just should have been no big deal, but the school district made it a really big deal and wouldn't let me hold Ty back. So in an attempt just to let him start first grade a year later when he was ready for it, I had him tested by a female PhD in Greenville, South Carolina. I had gone to Furman, and that's where my academic roots were. So I went up there to have Ty tested, and the female PhD said he's a motor mouth, he'd be disruptive in the classroom, he's hyperactive, he needs to be on Ritalin, and definitely hold him back a year.
Wow.
And she had my
so
son.
Ritalin, a problem. What were some of those other adjectives?
Oh, just what he just talked about. And it just made me mad. I thought, you might have been describing a part of my son, but you missed his charming nature and all those other things about him. So a friend of ours was a PhD and tested children diagnostically. And I said, Paul, would you test Ty for me? So Paul tested him and said, boy, Zan, he's a man's man at age 6. His vocabulary is expansive. His imagination is off the charts. He's charming. He can talk about almost any subject at his age. Why in the world would you want to hold him back? And I realized that Ty would have all female teachers probably the first 6 to 8 years in his school career, and most of them would view him as that disruption, just like Nick was talking about. And so it was really, Ty was an auditory kinesthetic learner. He moved by talking and by doing, and that's not acceptable behavior in the classroom. And so homeschooling was perfect for him. It was also perfect for John and Lizzie. But, it's interesting because Greg Harris, who was an early speaker in the homeschooling movement, used to say that a lot of time in education, a teacher's definition of a good boy is a good girl.
Whoa.
And then he would look at the audience and he'd say, Dad, you need to teach your sons how to throw rocks. I mean, not to be destructive, just to be a boy and get him outside and active. And I want to say one more thing and then get your feedback on this. Years ago in 1987, I read the first book called Missing in Action, Vanishing Manhood in America. And all of a sudden, people are beginning to realize that manhood, as we've always known it in this country, was really disappearing and being criticized and really being persecuted. And then we get here wholesale today. And we're seeing a lot of men's movement, I think, for the first time. We had Promise Keepers back in the late 1900s, early 2000s, and that was good. And now we're seeing more and more people being concerned about the place of men in our culture. And we'll actually talk about that when we do a church segment a little bit.
Yeah, I was just going to say it's interesting. I've been thinking about this more and more. You don't really have to sell homeschooling to people conceptually. Not anymore. Not like you did, where you had to be like, well, I don't want to go to jail and everyone should have the right to do this. But now it's an easy sell and conceptually, right? Like it's I think it's a tough sell when people have to really internalize like, oh, my life's going to kind of turn upside down. Like I have to be all in as a parent now. There's not like this 8-hour chunk a day where I can be like, someone else deal with it. But conceptually, it's always an easy sell because everything Nick just said, everyone just nods their heads. Like everything you just said is such a given now. We're like, duh, like anyone who's had a son or who is a boy, like, yeah, like I hated school. In fact, guarantee when you talk to boys who loved school, and you trace it back, like, when did that start? It was never the first few years. It's like maybe later when they're like falling into their kind of sweet spot, and like maybe they're playing sports, and really what they loved was hanging out with the football team or the basketball team. And, they really liked this one English teacher that one time and when they were a sophomore. But like you kind of touched into something, how it's just that it's built into men. So I've been making fires a lot every night because we finally got our fireplace cleaned out. And every time I say, who wants a fire? All three of my boys sprint to the door because they know that means they're going out. We're grabbing the hatchet. We're going to make some kindling. We're going to go grab some logs. And I didn't teach them any of those things.
Right.
Like
right.
They're just like, we're going to make fire. We're going to grab some stuff. We're going to cut it. We're going to cut it into smaller things and rah, like, what I mean? It's just like this, like, why do we I gotta make kindling, like turn this big log and turn it into smaller pieces. And then we're going to burn it. It's like, why? I don't know. It's just, it's like, we're just built this way. So like sticking these poor children in desks for 8 hours a day for a 10-minute recess. And, I've told the story a lot of times about the homeschool documentary I did, and they were talking about this kid who struggled in math. And it wasn't that he was struggling in terms of concepts again. It was struggling with fidgeting, moving around, and which you've talked about a ton.
Yes.
And so what do? They hold him in for recess so he can continue to do math. And it's like anyone would be like, wait a minute.
Yeah, that's so counterproductive.
If
he
anything,
needs to be out for recess more than any other person, in the class.
And it's like, who cares the speed of a swallow getting from South Carolina to Georgia at the rate of a coconut? Like let him run, and then so anyways.
Well, if they
totally
run,
right.
Then they're going to be more able to sit and do their schoolwork later.